Yeah. Well, let's then move to the summary of the whole day. And again, I will try to say something fairly brief and probably not particularly surprising, but it's certainly been informative to hear your discussion of each of these concepts over the course of a rather long day, but it's actually given us a lot to think about. I was, as I was listening to the discussion of each of the concepts, trying to get a sense of roughly where you are in terms of level of enthusiasm, but obviously that varies a bit from person to person, and we didn't expect to do any voting here. When we come up with a sort of plan about where we're going to set the priorities, and the executive committee, as far as I know, is meeting tomorrow to try to wrestle with this, so there's no rest for the weary here. We will have to get more deeply into how much money do we have and how much do some of these projects cost. We didn't want you all to focus on the cost very much, which is why we gave you these big, broad ranges about cost, so that wouldn't be the main part of the conversation. But you will have noticed that the differences are substantial between things that are perhaps fairly easy to fit into an agenda and others that are really big, heavy lifts. And so we, the executive committee, will have to wrestle with that in some kind of recognition of the balance between enthusiasm and how much a particular project is going to cost, and therefore squeeze out other things. We will try to do that, informed by all the things that we've heard from you. I know, because I had to go do COVID-19 stuff in the middle of the day, so I missed most of the discussion that happened after the morning, and I'll have to get get information about that from Walter and from Rebecca about that part of the conversation. But let's open it up now to any comments that people might have about the whole sweep of today's discussions and the whole plans that we might be trying to make about how to spend our fiscal year 21 dollars. So anybody who would like to speak, please do. And
just to give you a brief introduction, Francis, we did talk about kind of the overall portfolio during that first summary period, and really where we want the initiative to go and how each of these decisions relates into that very large scale planning. So feel free to weigh in on that, as well as you consider a proposal, recognize that it might reflect part of the future direction of the initiative.
Gotcha.
Well, Francis, I'll start off. This is Rick Kuntz. I want to make a comment about the medical devices, and also want to disclose the fact that I work for a medical device company, so I'm going to have my conflict out there. This is spinal cord stimulation is a $2 billion market. It's huge, but the science is really not good. And I'm embarrassed to say that. I really think there's an opportunity for scientific leadership in this space, in neuromodulation. I think there is a great potential for electrical stimulation of parts of the spinal cord as well as peripheral nerves, but we really need to have better mechanistic understanding. We need to have better rigor on the clinical research side. And I just think it's an opportunity for a non-opioid solution that this group, HEAL, could really take over the scientific leadership for medical devices.
Thank you. And you know something about the field, so we take that quite seriously. Others?
Yeah, I think, hi Francis, Rob Giroux. I just wanted to, as you had to step out during that first discussion period, one of the major points that we made in there that I just want to make sure kind of rings home is the need to make sure that we have an adequate continued investment in the pain research pipeline that we have on the basic science side, and also in the translational development of new therapies. We spent a lot of time talking about one of the proposed new programs related to novel development of novel non-addictive pain therapies that was couched here in the context of in the background of substance use disorders. But we had a lot of discussion then later about the need to really have that program evolve. There's support from several of us that were talking during that discussion period about the need to continue investing at least to some extent in that program. And that is in the general context of what Rebecca was mentioning about the overall balance of the program and the degree to which we maintain some degree of balanced funding for the the pain kind of crisis that we have as a basis for avoiding future problems with addiction. And so I just wanted to kind of reiterate that and strongly support this development program for novel non-addictive analgesics. And maybe Alan could chime in on that as well.
Well, I think I pretty much made my opinion clear earlier. I completely agree. The prescription opioid problem comes from people who have pain to begin with. And so if you deal with that, whether or not there is a concurrent problem, it's really, in a sense, there's almost two different issues. One is, what do you do with the individual who needs pain relief and has developed a dependence, or the person who has developed dependence because they had pain and the pain may have resolved, but now they're dependent. Those are two very, very different people, and in many ways, two very, very different problems. But what drives the thing in the first place was the pain. So I want to be sure that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
I hear you. I think probably there was some discussion, I'm just guessing, about how in the early days of the HEAL Initiative, where we have this public health crisis of people dying in the tens of thousands, that when it comes to the highest priorities or the things that maybe that could be most effective in the short term is treatments for opioid use disorder. But in the long term, obviously, we have to have better alternatives. Maybe somebody already said that. I'm guessing they might have.
Yes, that's true. Larry definitely talked about that. Yeah.
Okay. Ned, did you have a comment? I couldn't tell.
No, I was just, wait, let me make sure I'm unmuted.
You're on.
Yeah, no, I was just going to agree with the point about the, so many people start out with pain and later develop opioid use disorder. I'm just concurring with that point.
Okay.
Focus on pain.
Are there other broad general comments about what you've heard today?
Francis, this is Eric, and I just wanted to reiterate the point that we have a big challenge ahead of us, which is both to deal with prevention of the problem, and that does necessitate the development of new non-opioid medications for pain, like Rob is talking about. But we also have to deal with the treatment of the millions of people right now who are presently suffering from opioid use disorder or who are engaging in opioid misuse, and who also have comorbid conditions like pain and other psychiatric conditions. So I think the really important priority area, one is, as Rob's saying, develop new medications to prevent the opioid problem by alleviating pain. And the other is helping people who are suffering from pain and who are suffering from opioid use disorder with treatments that address both simultaneously.
Well, yeah, that, I think, describes quite well what the goals of the HEAL Initiative are intended to be. And we're always trying to juggle exactly where to put those dollars. Fortunately, we have a lot of them, and that's something that I hope is apparent here, the fact that we've already invested $1 billion, and over the course of this 5-year period, if you remember one of those early slides, it's approaching $3 billion that we have to spend. It's a pretty good chunk of money. But we just want to be sure, and that's why we're depending on you, that we are thinking wisely about where those priorities are. I see Lynn would like to speak. Am I right?
Yeah, thank you so much. I just wanted to concur with Eric and just to say that I think I heard a lot of enthusiasm for concept 4 and 6, and some of the synergy there I think was someone spoke to as well. And, you know, I would just say about that medications are critical, and I fully support, you know, the development pathway. I think we also have great challenges in getting people to take medication, adhere to it, lots of logistics in the field. And I think there are, I was excited in number 4 that there was, the mechanism really allows for a lot of exploratory work and synergy with existing initiatives, and in number 6 with some of the ability to unbundle some of the components of these multi-component treatments in ways that are far more efficient, I think would move methods as well as really get some of the tools into the front line that we really need for clinical care.
Yep. good points.
I wonder if I could ask Nora a question, and I know nothing about Kraton, but as I was listening to the discussion, it reminded me about Ibogaine. And I'm kind of curious, historically, whatever happened to that?
Ibogaine actually had some very interesting properties. And for those of you that do not know, something like 15 years ago or a little bit more, there were a series of studies reporting that patients that were given Ibogaine who were addicted, predominantly was given for cocaine use disorders, were actually able to stop taking the drug. And NIDA was very interested on actually developing treatments and expanding the use of Ibogaine and evaluating it. The problem was that it is neurotoxic and it produces damage to the pons. So that killed Ibogaine on arrival. And thus we went back to the researchers and says, can you get molecules that don't have that toxicity? And we were actively seeking out researchers to come with proposals and never really came out, which is unfortunate because the molecule itself is, the mechanisms are very different from what you see with mitragynon, which is a partial mu agonist that also has psychostimulant properties and affects the serotonergic system. But no, that has never went anywhere.
Is it conceivable, given what you said, that we should consider, maybe not right now, but in the future, to specifically ask, I mean, there are, with chemical structures now being demonstrated by cryo and the ability to in silico screen, that maybe that's a target that should be revisited.
Yeah, no, totally. And I'm glad you're bringing it up because I was, with the development of computations and modeling, we are right now at a different stage from where we were before. And so I completely agree. And I was always intrigued because the effects that they were getting were quite credible. And it was not just in animals, they were seeing it also in humans. So yes, and I'll follow up with it and see what type of opportunities we would have. And then determine based on that if there is a path forward or not.
Great.
Okay. Well, it has been a long day, and you all have been extremely tolerant of this format. I must say my hat is off to all parties for making it happen, to our technologists who actually set this up in a fashion that worked pretty seamlessly. We had one issue with Tisha where she couldn't seem to hear us or we couldn't hear her, but that was pretty much it. So that's quite gratifying because we've not really tried to do a meeting in this framework, at least I haven't before. And I've been able to see some of you, and it's been wonderful to see your smiling faces and to see what artwork you have on your walls at home. And you can see what artwork we have here as well. But it was a challenge, I think, to make this kind of format work in terms of the interactiveness, to get the discussion going and not have everybody hold back. And I think that's gone really well. And that's a testimony to all of our MDWG members for being such extroverts, even in this situation.
Well, and your preparation. Thank you for looking at everything ahead of time and coming to us with a lot of informed and really thoughtful input.
Yeah. And it was really helpful having discussants assigned to sort of get things going. I think that's a model that helped us a lot with the way in which this played out, and we might want to do that again when we have another meeting, which maybe now it's time for me to turn over to Rebecca and tell you, okay, what are the next steps and the plans for August?
That's right. So this was a new engagement with the MDWG. We have the luxury of a little bit more time. So you'll remember that these are just concepts, and they could be supported in 2020, they could be supported in 2021, they could be supported in 2022. And we will now kind of try to collate all the input we've received and make some sequencing decisions and budgeting decisions and prioritization decisions here at NIH. That will result in funding opportunity announcements that go out for FY 2021 and the initiation of programs towards those specified goals, but we still have 20 underway, right? So we have a large number of opportunities out there now. many of them seeking to fill gaps identified at our August meeting of the MDWG, August last year, and many of them seeking to sustain and expand on programs that we initiated in 2019 and we've heard from you today are things that you think are still core contributions of HEAL and that we really need to continue investing in. And so the plan is for this group to convene again in August. Thank you for August 2020. Thank you for letting us know what times work. It looks like August 31st is the date that works best for the group. We'll send out a formal confirmation by email about that. I don't dare to say anything about venue or format. I echo Francis's comments. Thank you very much, Erin, Will, Jordan, everyone on the team that helped put this together. I cannot tell you the nightmare scenarios I was envisioning. So thank you to everyone for your preparation and good humor as we worked it out. But what we'll aim to do is bring people together in person at the end of August, and that's when we'll do 20 steps. So that's when we'll say we had a lot of various and sundry opportunities out there for folks to augment and sustain the 2019 investments. How do they all look? And this will get to some of the big picture issues that I think we raised today. And will also give us a chance to talk about things that we haven't talked about so far, like what should we be doing for training? What should we be doing for workforce diversity?
And where are we with the database?
Right. How's the data going? We're kind of building this army of investigators out there. How are we organizing them, and how do we want to expand on them? So that is, you'll get additional information about that, but that's the plan for August. And I would also say, we're getting to the point where you all know the balance of the portfolio and the balance of the studies really well, which is great, and it took a little bit of time. So now that we're in this kind of, we all know one another and our teams all know one another, always feel free to reach out. We're going to have these workshops, we're going to have these engagement platforms, and you all aren't just a group that we want to turn to for input in these very formalized settings twice a year, but also you're kind of our ears on the ground for the investigator community, and you are not necessarily leading one specific program that you'll be feeling like, oh, I need to advocate for, but in a position to look across our investments and give us wise advice. So always feel free to reach out for that, and as our engagement and communication activities ramp up, we'll be sharing that information with you and asking for input on those as well. And thank you, everyone.
So I think that kind of gets us to a conclusion. It's been wonderful having your input. Our executive committee will meet tomorrow and try to figure out what we can do with all of this wise advice and try to then make some decisions about priorities. But you've given us exactly what I hoped might be possible today, even given the virtual format. So many thanks to all of you, and appreciate particularly those who got up very early, who still have time to take a nap. I don't know. And we will all carry on. Stay safe. Stay at 6 feet away from anybody that you know or don't know. Take care of yourself. That's what we're all in for here for quite a while.